There's a hidden pattern in human behavior that most people don't see. On the surface, someone may look confident, independent, and touchable, but in secret, behind the walls they've built, they live with a quiet fear of intimacy. And instead of facing that fear, they spread their energy across multiple partners. Not because they are stronger, not because they are free, but because they are terrified of what would happen if they surrendered fully to one person. The mind tells them, if I keep it light, if I keep it scattered, no one can break me, no one can hurt me. But what they don't realize is that in trying to avoid pain, they are creating a deeper one, the pain of emptiness. They fill their nights with distraction, but their soul wakes up hungry, hungry for depth, hungry for love, hungry for the connection they keep running from. And here's the truth: having multiple partners isn't about abundance, it's about lack. It's the illusion of control, the illusion of safety. But control is not freedom. Safety is not intimacy. And without intimacy, there is no fulfillment, there is no healing, there is no divine alignment. Every human being was designed for connection, not shallow, not temporary, not fleeting, but soul-level union. When we play small and keep love on the surface, we rob ourselves of the very thing that could liberate us. We rob ourselves of the one experience that can take our brokenness and turn it into wholeness. Some people will say, this is who I am, I don't need more. But deep inside, they know the truth. The mask slips in moments of silence. In the middle of the night, when the noise is gone, they hear the whisper, there has to be more. There has to be something deeper. That whisper is the voice of truth. It is the voice of the Spirit calling you to stop scattering your heart, to stop living divided, and to choose the courage of depth. Because fulfillment never comes from the quantity of partners, it comes from the quality of presence. And presence requires courage, it requires facing the fear of rejection, the fear of being seen, the fear of being vulnerable. But when you stop running and allow yourself to be known, that's when transformation begins. That's when love ceases to be a game and becomes a force of healing. So if you've been running, if you've been juggling, if you've been telling yourself that multiple partners protect you, understand this: what you fear most, true intimacy, is the very thing that will free you. The moment you stop dividing your heart, you start multiplying your power. The moment you stop escaping, you start living. And the moment you surrender to love, fully, courageously, unapologetically, that's the moment you step into your divine purpose. Fear of vulnerability is one of the most powerful invisible forces shaping the way avoidant individuals behave in relationships. At the surface, it may appear as though they are strong, independent, and detached by choice. To the outside world, they can seem like people who have mastered their emotions, who don't get too easily attached, and who carry themselves with confidence. But underneath that armor, there is a constant inner dialogue that says, if I get too close, I might lose myself. If I let someone see who I really am, they might reject me. If I lean too much, I might get abandoned. These fears are not always conscious, yet they are deeply embedded in the nervous system, often rooted in early experiences where vulnerability was met with pain instead of safety. Because of this, the avoidant individual often chooses to create emotional distance, even when their heart craves intimacy. They want love, they want connection, but the cost of opening up feels too high. Vulnerability to them equals danger. To show someone their deepest feelings feels like giving away power, like exposing a weakness that could be used against them. And so they develop coping mechanisms, one of which is entertaining multiple partners. This isn't always driven by desire for excitement or variety. Many times, it is simply about keeping themselves safe from the risk of being fully known and fully hurt. When one partner begins to feel too close, they can redirect their energy to another. This creates a cycle where no one gets too deep into their world. The walls remain intact and the heart stays hidden. It feels safe because if one connection falls apart, they still have others to lean on. It creates the illusion of power and choice. But what is really happening is avoidance of the one thing they fear most, being vulnerable with one person long enough for that person to see their fears, their flaws, and their true self. Fear of vulnerability is also why they often struggle with consistency. They may show affection one moment and then pull back the next. They may crave closeness but then sabotage it once it begins to deepen. This back and forth behavior is not about malice, it is about survival. Their system has been wired to believe that love equals danger, so whenever they feel it getting too intense, the walls automatically rise. Having multiple partners gives them a way to spread that intensity thin, so no single relationship becomes too threatening. At a spiritual level, this fear of vulnerability is a disconnection from authenticity. The soul longs for transparency, for honesty, for the courage to be seen and accepted. But the ego, shaped by past wounds, resists it at all costs. Instead of leaning into love, avoidants lean into control. They control how much they reveal, how much they commit, and how much they allow others to access their hearts. And because vulnerability is the birthplace of intimacy, without it they remain stuck in surface-level connections that never truly satisfy. What many do not realize is that vulnerability is not weakness, It is strength to open up, to let someone in, to risk being seen is one of the most courageous acts a human being can perform. Yet to someone with an avoidant pattern, this strength feels like the greatest danger. Their fear drives them to protect themselves at all costs, even if it means sacrificing the one thing they want most: deep, lasting love. This paradox defines much of their secret behavior. They are not running from love itself, they are running from the vulnerability that love requires. The illusion of control is one of the strongest forces that keeps avoidant individuals locked in patterns that ultimately work against them. On the surface, they appear calm, composed, and in charge of their decisions. They design their relationships in a way that makes them feel untouchable. If they juggle multiple partners, if they keep their commitments light, if they never let anyone too close, then they feel like they are the ones dictating the terms. They tell themselves, no one can hurt me if I stay in charge. No one can leave me if I never fully let them in. This becomes their armor, their protection, and their shield. But what seems like control is often just a carefully constructed illusion masking deep fear and insecurity. At first, the illusion works. They feel a sense of power in having options, in deciding how much to reveal, and when to pull back, they believe they are the ones calling the shots, the ones setting the rules of engagement. But control in this context is not true freedom, it is a prison. It keeps them constantly managing and monitoring, always guarding their heart, always calculating what to say and what not to say. That calculation may prevent heartbreak in the short term, but it also prevents intimacy in the long term. And intimacy is the very thing the human soul craves. The problem with the illusion of control is that it doesn't actually protect them from pain, it only delays it. When someone lives guarded, scattered, and half present, they might avoid the sharp sting of rejection, but they slowly suffer the dull ache of emptiness. They may avoid being betrayed, but they betray themselves every time they refuse to allow love in. Control becomes a way of life, but it comes at the cost of joy, connection, and authenticity. The truth is, control is not about strength. It is about fear disguised as strength. Another hidden consequence of this illusion is that it breeds loneliness. When a person constantly keeps their guard up, they cannot feel truly seen or understood. They may have people around them, but they remain emotionally alone. And loneliness, even when hidden beneath layers of independence and business, slowly erodes the spirit. The more they cling to control, the more they reinforce the very isolation they are trying to escape. True control in relationships is not about managing outcomes or keeping people at a distance. It is about mastering oneself, choosing courage over fear, authenticity over pretense, depth over surface. But to someone caught in an avoidance cycle, letting go of control feels like surrendering power, when in reality, it is the first step toward real freedom. Control promises safety, but it robs them of fulfillment. It keeps them in survival mode when they were designed to thrive. And until they release that illusion, they will continue to hold on to strategies that keep them safe, but never allow them to feel truly alive. Surface connection is seductive because it feels easy, safe, and controllable. For avoidance, it offers a way to engage without fully engaging, to taste intimacy without ever diving into it. When they spread themselves across multiple partners or keep relationships at a shallow level, they experience short bursts of attention, affection, and excitement. It creates a temporary high, a distraction that soothes the deeper fear of being truly known. On the outside, it looks like freedom, like variety, like living without limits. But in reality, it is an escape from the very thing that would nourish them the most: authentic, lasting intimacy. Surface connection works like a mask. It allows someone to play the role of being connected without ever risking exposure. They can laugh, flirt, share stories, and even create moments that feel meaningful. But it all remains on a carefully managed level. The guardrails never come down, vulnerability never goes too deep. The person on the other side may feel close for a moment, but soon they sense the distance, the wall that keeps them from entering the deeper chambers of the avoidance heart. And that's the tragedy. Connection is present, but it is never complete. The difference between surface connection and true intimacy is the difference between fast food and a nourishing meal. One satisfies for the moment but leaves the body hungry again soon after. The other fills the soul and sustains life. Surface connections can keep someone entertained, distracted, and even validated, but they cannot create the safety, growth, and healing that come from being fully open with one person. They lack the depth where real transformation happens, the place where love becomes not just a feeling but a force. For the avoidant, multiple surface connections feel like a safety net. If one ends, another remains. If one partner gets too close, they can shift their focus to someone else. This creates a cycle that gives the illusion of abundance but delivers emptiness. They collect moments but never build memories. They share bodies but never share souls. And over time, the very thing they think protects them ends up starving them of fulfillment. Because what every human being truly longs for is not variety but depth, not temporary highs but enduring connection. The paradox is that while surface level relating feels easier, it is actually harder in the long run. It requires constant management, constant shifting, and constant avoidance of the one truth that keeps knocking on the door. You cannot experience love without risking vulnerability. True intimacy requires consistency, commitment, and courage. It demands being seen not just in moments of pleasure, but in moments of weakness, fear, and imperfection. And until an avoidant steps beyond surface connection into that depth, they will keep circling the same cycle, feeling in control yet secretly unfulfilled, surrounded by people yet deeply alone. The pain behind the mask is the silent truth that drives much of the avoidance behavior. On the surface, they may appear indifferent, confident, or even cold, but what fuels that exterior is often a history of wounds that have never been fully acknowledged or healed. Deep down, many avoidants carry scars of rejection, abandonment, or the feeling that their love was never enough. These early imprints teach them that closeness equals pain, that trusting others leads to disappointment, and that the safest way to live is to hide their true emotions. Instead of opening their hearts, they put on a mask that says, I don't need anyone, I can handle this on my own. But beneath that mask, there is often a constant ache for connection that they struggle to admit, even to themselves. This inner pain shows up in subtle ways. It might be the sudden withdrawal when a relationship feels too intimate, or the restless need to move from one connection to another. It could be the way they distract themselves with work, hobbies, or surface-level relationships to avoid the quiet moments where the emptiness becomes too loud. These behaviors are not simply choices, they are defenses. Defenses built to keep others from seeing the raw truth that they long for love, but they are terrified of losing it once they have it. The mask gives them a sense of safety, but it also keeps them trapped. When they hide behind independence, when they pretend they are unaffected, they cut themselves off from the very healing they crave. They may convince others that they are fine, but when the noise fades and the distractions settle, they are left with the loneliness that never really leaves. This loneliness is not a reflection of who they are. It is a reflection of the walls they have built around their heart. Carrying this pain in secret also creates an inner conflict. On one hand, they yearn to be seen, to be held, to be accepted without conditions. On the other hand, they fear that if someone truly saw the depth of their wounds, they would turn away. This tug of war keeps them stuck in a cycle of reaching out and pulling back, of wanting closeness but fearing the cost. It is a battle between the desire for intimacy and the fear of exposure, and that battle can be exhausting for both the avoidant and the people who care about them. What makes this pain so difficult is that it is rarely acknowledged openly. Avoidants often downplay their struggles, even to themselves. They may label their need for independence as strength or convince themselves that they prefer freedom over connection. But the truth is, the mask is not who they are, it is who they became to survive. And while it may have protected them once, it now stands in the way of the love and intimacy their soul deeply longs for. The spiritual call to integrity is the turning point that separates a life of running from a life of fulfillment. When avoidants juggle multiple partners or live behind emotional walls, they may convince themselves that they are safe, that they are in control, that no one has the power to hurt them. But deep within the soul, there is always a whisper that will not go away. That whisper says, this is not who you were created to be. This is not where true freedom lies. It is the voice of truth calling them toward alignment, toward honesty, toward the kind of love that requires courage. Integrity is not about being perfect, nor is it about following rigid rules. Integrity is about being whole, about bringing the hidden parts of oneself into the light and living in alignment with what the heart truly desires. When someone lives divided, when they hide behind masks or scatter their energy across shallow connections, they feel a constant inner tension. They may look calm to the world, but inside there is conflict. Their actions do not match their soul's longing. They are living out of sync with their own truth, and no amount of distraction can silence the discomfort that creates. At a spiritual level, the call to integrity is an invitation to stop running. It asks the avoidant to stop pretending that surface-level connection is enough, to stop hiding behind control, and to stop betraying their own need for intimacy. Integrity means daring to admit, I want more, I want depth, I want to be known and loved for who I really am. And while saying those words feels terrifying, it is the first step toward freedom. Because the truth is, dishonesty with oneself always leads to suffering, while honesty, even when it feels risky, leads to healing. Integrity also transforms the way we relate to others. When someone lives divided, they create confusion in their relationships. Partners feel the push and pull, the mixed signals, the closeness followed by distance. But when that person steps into integrity, they begin to show up with consistency and clarity. They no longer have to juggle or manage appearances. They can stand firmly in who they are and invite someone else to meet them there. That kind of presence is magnetic. It draws in the kind of love that is lasting, not fleeting. The spiritual call to integrity is not a punishment, it is a gift. It is the soul's way of reminding us that we were not designed for half love, half truth, or half living. We were designed for wholeness, and wholeness can only come when what we think, feel, and do are aligned. For the avoidant, that means letting go of the illusion that distance is safety and embracing the truth that honesty is freedom. It means daring to step into the light of authentic connection, even if it means facing the fear of being hurt, because on the other side of that fear is not destruction. It is healing, purpose, and love that can stand the test of time. When avoidants finally stop running from intimacy, something powerful begins to unfold. For so long, they have believed that distance is their protection, that control is their safety, that scattering themselves keeps them free. But when they choose to turn toward connection instead of away from it, they discover a freedom they never knew was possible. The path to transformation is not about adding more partners, more distractions, or more layers of defense. It is about stripping those things away until only the truth remains. And the truth is that love, when embraced fully, is not a threat but a liberation. This path begins with courage. Courage to face the fears that have controlled their choices for years, fears of rejection, abandonment, or being unworthy of love. When they allow themselves to step through that fear instead of letting it dictate their every move, they begin to access a deeper power within themselves. It is the power of authenticity, the power of standing unguarded and saying, "This is who I am. I am no longer hiding." That moment of surrender is not weakness. It is strength. It is the birth of transformation. As they walk this path, healing starts to happen. The wounds that once told them to protect themselves at all costs begin to lose their grip. They realize that true intimacy is not the enemy but the medicine. Each time they allow themselves to be present, to be consistent, to stay instead of running, they rewrite the story of their own worthiness. The walls that once kept love out begin to crumble, and what was once emptiness becomes fullness. What was once fear becomes trust. What was once avoidance becomes presence. This transformation is not only emotional but spiritual. The moment someone steps out of hiding and chooses depth, they begin to align with their higher purpose. They see that love is not just about personal fulfillment. It is about growth, expansion, and connection to something greater than themselves. In choosing intimacy, they are not losing freedom. They are stepping into divine freedom. They are answering the call to live whole, to love fully, and to stop dividing their energy between half-truths and surface connections. And in this space of transformation, relationships stop being battles and become sanctuaries. Instead of partners being sources of threat, they become partners in healing. Instead of juggling multiple lives, the avoidant finds themselves rooted in one authentic bond that multiplies their strength instead of draining it. That is when love becomes not just an experience, but a foundation. It becomes the very ground they stand on, strong enough to carry them forward into the life they were meant to live. Thank you for giving your time, your energy, and your heart to this message today. Remember, transformation begins the moment you choose courage over fear and authenticity over hiding. Keep walking your path with strength and openness, and life will meet you with the love and fulfillment you were born for. Goodbye for now, and may you step forward with power, purpose, and unshakable faith in what's possible for you.